Hello again, travelers, and welcome back to the logbook of a simple Lindworm traveler. I am Krotnip, and today we are going to be delving yet deeper into the forces of the northern tribes by talking about the orc Wisemane. So, let's start by asking the question, who is the orc Wisemane? The Wisemane is a former chieftain of an orcish tribe who has been deposed by a younger and thus eventually more powerful challenger. This former chieftain is not killed, however, and as a matter of fact, orcs don't follow a challenger who kills the previous chieftain in malice, but rather they are expected to allow the former leader to live and contribute their wisdom to the tribe as a Wisemane. While most orc elders are expected to fall in combat sooner rather than later, the Wisemanes are, on the contrary, expected to try and survive and pass on their wisdom and knowledge to the next generation of orcs. So in this way, in a culture that does not value their elders all that much, the Wisemane holds a privileged position. I really like how in the Corvus Bellis lore, the orcs don't feel resentment towards each other in cases like a successful challenge for the leadership of the tribe, but rather the Wisemane accepts their new position and sees it as an evolution in the circle of life, rather than being bitter and vengeful about the fact that they have lost their position of leadership. Okay, enough about the backstory, let's get to the basic stats of the Wisemane. When it comes to characters who are capable of joining units, I'm going to be splitting these analyses into two parts. The first part is going to be about the solo model, and then we will be talking about the attached version. When it comes to the Wisemane, you are going to be bringing them for their attached abilities, so keep that in mind as we go through the solo profile, and remember that the solo profile isn't really why we are going to be bringing this guy along. First things first, the Wisemane is quite cheap to recruit to your company. At 15 points, he's even cheaper than the Orc Hunter unit we talked about in the last unit analysis video, so points cost really shouldn't be a prohibiting factor when choosing to field him most of the time. In the same breath, it must be said that the Wisemane does not bring any command tokens along. Many other characters do, and the Wisemane has a command skill that will be utilizing these command tokens, but probably due to his low points cost, he isn't going to be bringing any command tokens to your force by himself, so just keep that in mind when building your army. When it comes to movement, as befitting an elderly statesman orc, the Wisemane is a bit slower than his younger counterparts, for example in the Hunters. While the 2-3 basic movement doesn't actually have to mean anything most of the time, since you are allowed to swap around your movements as you perform them, his standard movement would be close to, or actually exactly the same as that of the Hunter unit. But in case of situations like being slowed, the slowed state forces you to sacrifice your second movement value. So in the case of the Wisemane, he'll be losing the longer distance over his younger counterparts. In the same vein, his charge distance is a bit slower or shorter than that of units like the Orc Hunters, but the charge range of 9 is fine for what we are going to be asking him to do, as most of the time the Wisemane will be embedded in a unit and this will not actually come up. Having 3 wounds is pretty decent. It helps us keep the Wisemane alive a bit longer, as you will be seeing his defense isn't the best, so having 3 wounds really helps. When it comes to his psychological performance, the Wisemane does have a decent willpower of an orange and a yellow dice, but the low morale value of 1 means that you can't activate the solo Wisemane all that many times. You're effectively looking at a activation token, then a stress token, and then you need to be resting if for some reason you are in such a desperate situation that you want to be activating your solo Wisemane a 3rd time. Then again, that's more than appropriate. This old orc needs to take some time to rest every once in a while to keep up with the younglings. So that's some nice work there, translating the backstory into a game profile. At availability 1, you can only recruit a single Wisemane per company. I think this is quite a good design decision, since at this point cost and with these abilities we might be seeing several Wisemanes per list otherwise, and it's getting implausible quite quickly how many former defeated chieftains can your Wrathmen have hanging around anyway. When it comes to keywords, the only keyword that has any special skill meaning is the fearless, which means that if the Wisemane is operating solo, or also when the Wisemane is operating solo rather, they will be fearless, so they can't be affected by the intimidating or frightened skill/state. As an orc character, the Wisemane can join orc infantry units, but if you are willing to splash out and have Alborg or Ahlvard lead your force, in those cases you can take advantage of the War Alliance ability and have your Wisemane join Varank units also. At the conquest value of 0, the Wisemane will be unable to capture any objectives from underneath even conquest 0 enemy models/units. So the amount of times that you will be detaching your Wisemane from the unit to go and capture an objective are going to be quite limited. You need to be going after an objective that's unclaimed by a unit, or at least unguarded by an enemy unit, and at the same time the presence of even a conquest 1 enemy unit in the closeness of that objective will see the enemy retake it rather quickly. So capturing isn't really his forte. When it comes to the attack breakdown, the Wisemane actually packs quite a nice punch for his points cost and for his intended purpose. The red, 2 orange and a yellow dice will be providing on average about 3 successes, and there is a pretty decent ceiling of 5 successes for the roll. If the Wisemane is attacking something on his own and he hasn't endured any stress so far, then you can push EA stress for an additional red dice and a solid special symbol, which will see the Wisemane's attack power increase to average of 4 successes and a maximum of 6. Speaking of specials, the Wisemane does have the same switch trigger as the Orc Hunters do, meaning that with 2 solid special symbols he can impose the vulnerable state on the enemy unit. With the dice combinations that the Wisemane has access to, especially when pushing for additional performance, there's going to be plenty of specials flying around, but unfortunately the Wisemane can't make any use out of them beyond the 2 needed to trigger the switch, so this isn't too important for him. Furthermore, the Wisemane can't make use of any hollow symbols, so attacking wise, he's going to be a pretty straight arrow. He has decent enough solo offensive potential so that if there is a vulnerable target that's going to be approaching your, for some reason, lonely Wisemane, you can charge and hopefully take them out. But this is probably going to be a rare occurrence due to reasons we are going to be going through a bit later. On the defense, this orc is really starting to show his age, with the average roll being actually less than a block per roll, and the absolute maximum that he can achieve being only 2 blocks. Pushing on the defense will not improve his defensive performance, but rather adds a red dice with a chance of inflicting on average 1 and at maximum 2 successes on the enemy attacking him. Again, there is no way to make use of hollow symbols, and there isn't even any special switches for the Wisemane when defending. All in all, the Wisemane's defensive performance is really weak, which leads to a reliance on that wounds attribute of 3. So you can't expect the Wisemane to survive any sustained attacks on him personally, though his 1 to 2 blocks and 3 wounds may be able to see him through a single attack by, let's say, a spell or maybe even a sniper shot, although the latter is going to be really dangerous for him. Okay, now let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk about the attached profile. The first things first is the fact that the Wisemane is a support character, which is limiting what he can do somewhat, I'm afraid. Then again, for 15 points we really can't expect a officer type character, I think. Being a support character means that the Wisemane doesn't count towards the number of troopers in the unit, models in the unit, which means that when it comes to calculating casualties for reducing the attached unit to a lower performance profile, the Wisemane does not count as one of the unit members. Furthermore, the support character can never be the last model that gets taken out as a result of casualties, which means that we won't be seeing a situation where the unit gets wiped out around the Wisemane and then he detaches to use his solo profile, but rather when the unit gets cut down, he will be the second to last model to go down in many cases, unless you choose to remove him earlier with the idea of trying to keep the unit's numbers at the above half mark for one reason or another. This is why I was talking a lot previously about why the solo profile doesn't matter that much, because you have to be detaching your Wisemane from your unit in order to use him as a solo, since taking casualties will eventually see the Wisemane go down with the members of the unit. While the solo profile of the Wisemane did not have any points in conquest value, the attached profile does add a point to the conquest of the unit he is accompanying. And this is really nice, since this will make even a humble unit of Orc Hunters Conquest 2. And Conquest 2 will allow the unit then to grab objectives from lower conquest value units and defend a objective they have already occupied against a unit that has conquest of less than 3. And at that point the opponent really has to invest some heavy effort into trying and outmuscle the humble Orc Hunter unit when the Wisemane is providing additional performance to them. Speaking of additional performance, The Wisemane does offer some really important psychological bonuses to the unit that he is going to be accompanying. As you can see from the breakdown there, the Wisemane will be adding a yellow dice to the willpower of the attached unit. They aren't imposing their own willpower on the unit like somebody like the Varang Hersir would be doing. So this extra willpower is something that you will be able to leverage no matter what unit you will be attaching the Wisemane to. The increase in morale value also means that the unit can endure more stress. You can activate them potentially more times before you have to either rest or start activating a different thing. And they are way less likely to break, since the charisma and wisdom ability of the Wisemane allows the unit to re-roll their willpower rolls. This means that when you attach a Wisemane to a single orange die willpower unit, such as the Orc Hunters or through the War Alliance ability, the Varang Tundra Marauders, you have a almost 95% chance of passing your willpower test. Which not only means that your unit is going to be extremely difficult to break, it also means that sometimes you can afford to push for the extra stress, even knowing that the end of activation stress would put you over the threshold of your morale, since there is only about 1 in 20 chance of your unit breaking as a result. Obviously, this is what happened to me in my last game. I pushed my Wisemane's unit over their morale and they broke despite the additional dice and the reroll. But hey, it's about doing the right thing, not getting the right result. So process over the result, right? Additionally, just like the solo Wisemane was fearless, the unit accompanied by the said Wisemane will be fearless also. Hence, I didn't even try and calculate the chance for passing a severity 2 willpower test above, since the most common severity 2 willpower situation is probably going to be facing intimidating 2, and fearless makes the attached unit immune to intimidating and also to the frightened state. Last part of the help on the courage of the attached unit is the second part of the charisma and wisdom ability, which allows the unit accompanied by the Wisemane to avoid being pushed back after a lost combat without suffering any stress. This will complicate your opponent's plans to push the said unit out of, for example, controlling an objective range, since they can't rely on putting you at max or above threshold stress and then just pushing you out. The Wisemane can just dig their heels in, then probably pass any resulting morale test, even if their morale threshold was, or willpower test, even if the morale threshold was exceeded, thanks to the additional willpower and the reroll. So the Wisemane's unit should be really hard to shift on the battlefield. When it comes to improving the offensive potential of the attached unit, the Wisemane will be adding an automatic success to any roll made by the unit, which will in effect mean an increase of 1 in the average damage output, as well as increase of 1 in their maximum damage output. If you choose to push for additional performance, the Wisemane will be providing their unit with a additional red dice, EA 1 to 2 successes average max, and a solid special symbol. Remember that if you are attaching the Wisemane to a unit that already has a push ability of its own, due to the fact that the Wisemane's push modifier is preceded by the plus symbol, it means that you can combine these two abilities to in effect get 2 push bonuses for the price of just paying a single stress token on your unit. The solid special that the pushing will produce will help and facilitate the double special switch that the Wisemane will be adding to their unit, which is actually exactly the same as the solo profile and thus the same as with the Orc Hunters. So if you choose to attach the former to the latter, that will especially in a sense mean that you won't be getting any value out of this ability. But if you attach the Wisemane to a unit with a different special, then there might be more play for this ability. The Voice of Experience ability is the command skill of the Wisemane that we were talking a bit about before. So if you are willing to pay the price of a command token, the Wisemane can fix a single dice from the attack roll. In most instances, this will probably mean fixing a red die to be a double success, but then again, if the attached unit has some type of powerful switch that requires a hollow exclamation, so hollow special symbol, or maybe a hollow success, then you might be willing to fix another die to your liking. Remember that fixing means that you have to choose that dice before the roll and then choose the facing you can't roll first and then fix a dice that you don't prefer by using this ability. I would argue that the Wisemane is even more impactful when it comes to their attached units' performance on the defensive rather than on the offensive. Especially the Orc units seem to have the offensive side pretty well well taken care of by themselves, but their defense can be a bit lacking. Here also the Wisemane will be adding an automatic symbol, this time a block, which will harden the attached unit by increasing the average amount of blocks they will be rolling by 1 as well as the maximum by effectively 1. Where this skill really comes in is when combined with the Voice of Experience, EA fixing a dice, just like the Wisemane was able to do on the offensive, and the ability of several Northern Tribes units to substitute or switch their blocks into successes during defending. Let's say we are attaching our Wisemane to a unit of Orc Hunters who are rolling a green dice and 2 black dice, then the Wisemane will be adding that automatic block to that roll. You are willing to spend the command token on the Voice of Experience, and now you are starting off at 3 blocks already. And then you get to roll 2 black dice, which effectively means there's about 50-50 chance of you getting yet another block from there. And if you are willing to push stress for the extra performance, you will also be getting a red dice that should be providing you with at least 1 success also. So in this one fell swoop, you can effectively have your Wisemane and the attached Orc Hunter unit do 4 or even 5 points of damage against whatever is assaulting them or attacking them, and you are only effectively trading models from a 20-point unit of Orc Hunters to do so. Another nice thing that the Wisemane does for the defensive side of their unit is the fact that they give the unit the ability to switch to specials for the vulnerable state that you are already very much accustomed to when it comes to a Wisemane or the Orc Hunters themselves attacking. And this is actually pretty cool because when you are applying the vulnerable state on the offensive, you are actually missing the chance to take advantage of set state during that same attack. But if you use your defense roll to impose the vulnerable state on the enemy, it's already there when you attack the next time with the Wisemane's unit or whatever is going to come and help them out, so you can take full advantage of that token to really hammer the damage in on the enemy. Like I said, when talking about the orc hunters, situations like these can also open up the chance for you to trap and hold down an enemy unit by defending with the Wisemane's unit, imposing the vulnerable state on them even on the defensive, and then rushing another unit in to finish the enemy off, thus imposing the vulnerable state and also the penalty for fighting multiple units at the same time on them and effectively overwhelming them. Without the anvil unit, in this case the Wisemane's unit, needing to be all that expensive. So, final thoughts on the Orc Wisemane then. The Wisemane most definitely is a support unit attachment, and you should be deploying them with a unit from the get-go, and they should probably not be leaving their unit during the game unless a really special circumstance crops up. Most of their abilities are only useful when they are actually accompanying a unit, and using a solo Wisemane should be reserved for situations where you can, for example, detach your Wisemane from an active combat or a unit holding down an objective and go and grab an undefended objective from the enemy. To facilitate this, you should keep a close eye where you place your Wisemane when engaging in combat with their attached unit. As the Wisemane isn't the leader of the unit as a support character, you can place them effectively anywhere where you want in the combat, as long as you are trying to get into base to base with the enemy and you remain within 2 strides and with line of sight to your unit leader, so in coherency with the unit leader. So if there is a chance that you want to be maybe breaking out your Wisemane later on to grab an objective, place your Wisemane in the position that they will be as close to the objective you are going to be trying to grab as possible, and in a way that they can move efficiently out of the combat. If you end up leaving your Wisemane surrounded by enemies, or having to double back a long distance before they can start moving where they're going to, you may not be able to detach them from the combat efficiently. The Wisemane can only join Orc units unless you splash out and pay for a War Alliance character, so this is something that you should keep in mind when constructing your army list. Am I going to be happy with the Wisemane accompanying an Orc unit, or am I looking to add some additional benefits, automatic symbols and his special switches to Varang units, in which case Alborg or Ahlvard it is. The passive benefits of the Wisemane are really what you're getting him for. For 15 points you are really improving the performance of the attached unit, both in psychological terms, morale and willpower, fearless ability, but also when it comes to offensive and defensive power. The activated abilities, that is effectively the ability to not be pushed back if you so choose, and the voice of experience giving you the ability to fix a dice, are going to be a lot more situational, but keep a careful eye for situation where using those abilities, especially the voice of experience, may turn out to be really impactful. I would imagine the Wisemane to be a stable of infantry heavy future Northern Tribes builds at the point cost of 15. Even if you didn't choose to bring him along for some reason from the get-go, it's quite possible that you will be running out of points and you still get to add that one small thing, and in that instance it's probably a good idea to add the Wisemane. The situation where I wouldn't be adding the Wisemane would probably involve a scenario where I already have more preferable attachable characters for all my units, which would leave the Wisemane as a solo piece, and that's not what we are going to be getting him for. Okay, there are my thoughts on the Orc Wisemane. Thank you for joining me, fellow travelers, and goodbye for now.